This meeting is being recorded.
Hi, everyone. Before we begin, I would like to open our town hall by acknowledging the territory in which the Burnaby Mountain Gondola project will be situated, and us as members of the Simon Fraser University community are situated. Simon Fraser University Burnaby campus is situated on the traditional unceded territories of the Coast Salish people, including the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Coquitlam, and Katzie nations. Unceded means that these territories have never been handed over, sold, or given up by these nations, and we are currently situated on occupied territories. Squamish refers to Burnaby Mountain as Tuktukwetan, where the bark gets peeled in spring. The name is derived from the Squamish word for arbutus. Indigenous peoples have occupied these territories since time immemorial. When we recognize place names like Tuktukwetan, we are acknowledging the original histories that have been here since time immemorial. Prior to the colonization of these spaces, we currently have the privilege of being a part of. We acknowledge transportation as not only a socioeconomic and environmental justice issue, but specifically requiring and deserving full consultation and consideration of the Indigenous peoples, their rights and titles to the land, as well as the right to self-governance, self-determination, and sovereignty in all and any capacity. We acknowledge that ongoing harm has been imposed through assimilation and genocidal practices on Indigenous peoples, creating systemic barriers through racism, economic injustice, and patterns of historical development that are entrenched within our Western forms of government. I will be your moderator today. My name is Emanuela Drogo, and I am the board organizer here at the Simon Fraser Student Society. Thank you for joining us today at the proposed Burnaby Mountain Gondola Project Town Hall, collaboratively presented by the Simon Fraser Student Society, the Graduate Student Society, and Simon Fraser University. We have 3 speakers joining us today, including Matthew Provost, representing the Simon Fraser Student Society, Joanne Curry, representing Simon Fraser University, and Ruben Munez, representing the Graduate Student Society. So, some housekeeping. ASL will be conducted by our registered sign language interpreters, Liz and Carmen, and live transcriptions are available at the bottom of your screen, but you just have to press the button to turn it on. We will be conducting a series of presentations that will emphasize the importance of this project for varying SFU community members. We will continue with a question and answer period with both Joanne and Matthew, and we'll conclude our programming with a gift card draw. To enter the draw, submit any questions that you may have about the proposed gondola project to the jot form that should be available in the invite to win a $25 Skip the Dishes gift card. I will also broadcast that message out. Please remember to include your full name in order to enter the contest. So we're going to begin by opening the floor to Vice President External and Community Affairs of Simon Fraser Student Society, who will open this town hall, Matthew Provost. Matthew Provost is the current VP External and Community Affairs of the Simon Fraser Student Society and current Simon Fraser University alumni. He is traditionally from Treaty 7 territory, which is considered Blackfoot territory, and now resides in the traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. Go ahead, Matthew.
Thank you, Ella. Oki nadanako natsig pumadosin. Namohto to sixiga siptabi Treaty 7 bigani gaina sixiga gitsiksi matsitsi Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Coquitlam, Katzie, gitsiksi matsitsi Slakthwaitin Burnaby Mountain. My name is Matthew Provost. As Ella said, I'm the current VP External. I'm really thankful to be here today, and thank you everyone for coming. If you just give me a moment, I'm just going to share my screen for my slides, and then I'll get started on my presentation. I hope everyone's able to see my slides. How is that for everybody? Okay, just give me 2 seconds and then I will adjust this. It's always so interesting trying to do presentations and stuff like that on Zoom. Is something I don't think I will get used to. All right, sounds good. All right, so for everyone attending this morning's town hall, again, I just want to say thank you for coming, and thank you everyone for your hard work. So this is the Burnaby Mountain Gondola Transit Project, hosted by the Simon Fraser Student Society. So like Ella already opened up, we started with a territorial acknowledgement, and I think this is really essential, especially for the Simon Fraser Student Society, to acknowledge our part in reconciliation and how much that plays into the work that we do, especially in regards to advocacy. I think that we cannot situate the good work that we're doing if we do not center ourselves. For myself, I am an invited guest from Treaty 7 territory on these lands, especially for Simon Fraser University and also the Student Society. It's important to acknowledge that place names such as Burnaby Mountain, which is traditionally considered Burnaby Mountain in the Halkomunian Skohomish language. I think it's important to acknowledge that those place names have been here since time immemorial, longer than the university, also longer than the society, and we need to properly respect those and acknowledge and do the work that we have to do in regards to reconciliation. So just kind of moving on from that, I just want to acknowledge and really be thankful that I'm able to do this work, also with partners of the university and also the GSS and community members, to be able to be in these spaces as an Indigenous student, an Indigenous person, as an uninvited guest in these territories. So yeah, I will open up my presentation. And for the Simon Fraser Student Society, in regards to the Burnaby Mountain Gondola project, one of our things has been advocacy. So the Simon Fraser Student Society has supported the Burnaby Mountain Gondola project proposal along with SFU in order to advocate safe, reliable public transportation for undergraduate students, as well as university and the SFU community. The Society has been advocating for the proposed Burnaby Mountain Gondola project with the campaign, as you've probably seen, Give Students a Lift, throughout, I guess, almost a decade. So I wanted to kind of show the timeline of how long this campaign has actually been moving forward. And I think it's been really great to see the progression and also contribution that this has brought community together on a project as well. I think there's a really good voice in regards to student capacity as well as community on Burnaby Mountain who want to see this project go through. So I want to kind of outline some of the timeline since, from what I've been able to find in my research, which was supported through some of our staff in the society, and also folks who have graduated as well have been able to kind of help me compile some of these resources. So in 2009, the SFSS, sorry, 2 seconds. The SFSS adopted the promotion of public transportation policy, which actually included an endorsement of the Burnaby campus, the gondola system, and connections to Burnaby campus to the Production Way University station. This has included many collaborative campaigns aligned with SFU. As you can see, in 2013, there was a campaign that was launched. It was the We Like It on Top campaign. And then also there was a case that was submitted from the Student Society as well for the Burnaby Mountain Gondola. And this was in collaboration with the SFSS, GSS, and also at the time, Sustainable SFU. In 2019, we seen Give Students a Lift campaign, which started a really big notion of bringing in students to understanding what the gondola was and trying to make a presence of ensuring that students were aware of this project and that this could ultimately be a reality moving forward. So I just wanted to give a shout out to the Build SFU Gondola team during that time as that campaign continues now. So kind of furthering, even within the last couple of years within regards to moving online, despite not having the ability to do a lot of the lobbying or, in-person campaigning that we were able to do, there has been a lot of work behind the scenes, even with COVID. And with the return to campus, there have actually been some opportunity to travel to also continue some of this lobbying. In 2020, on January 21st and 22nd, the SFSS hosted an open house, which was actually represented of 700 students came through, as well as SFU community members, and they attended to kind of share their thoughts on the proposed gondola route, as well as feedback and their thoughts as well, to what they kind of felt, what the project meant to them, and as well as to share their experience, like I guess with public transit as well. The support for the Burnaby Mountain Gondola project has been long-standing, and the SFSS 2019 Board of Directors resolved to support as well the Burnaby Mountain Gondola project. And I think also it is good to mention that there was a big reason for support for this project as well, because it also added an extra evacuation measure in the event of 2 exit routes on Burnaby Mountain becoming blocked, either due to weather or hazardous events. Okay, cool. I'm going. All right, so for folks that are here, I think we're gonna take a quick minute to kind of figure out some of the configurations for the background end of it, and then I'll continue with my presentation. Apologies about that.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for your patience. So I think how we're going to proceed is that we're going to remove all unrecognized folks that are in the Zoom room, and we will be providing a recording of the session later on today on our social media. So you'll be able to watch it then, but just give me 1 second while we go through that process. Thank you.
Kicks.
This meeting is being recorded.
All right, so for kicks, I'll share my screen again and let me know if you can still draw on my screen. And if you haven't drawn on my screen yet, then I know you can't do anything. So that'll be my cue to continue. Yeah, I will start from my previous slide, and we will keep this moving. All right, give me 2 seconds to get situated, and then we'll go. All right, so please let me know if you can draw on my slide before I start. I take that as you can't, so I'm gonna keep presenting. I'm gonna hide my floating meeting controls, and I will finish. All right, cool. So in 2020, there was actually an open house, which the SFSS hosted, and there was actually over 700 students that attended this open house, which I thought was a really great thing in regards to not only SFU students, but SFU community as well. So there were so many members who attended to report this feedback, one on the preferred route of the gondola, as well as just in regards to how they thought the gondola would be beneficial to them, not only as an undergraduate student, but building community on the SFU Burnaby campus as well. It's actually very exciting because since I've been on the SFSS, I've been remote, and it was nice to actually, this fall 2021, the current president, Gabriel Leosis, and myself attended the legislative building in Victoria with actually Joanne, who is here, Nicole Rogers, Joy Johnson, and we actually had a discussion with MLA Katrina Chen, which is Burnaby Lougheed area. So, which is actually within our region at SFU Burnaby. And we actually continued the conversation on the gondola just to kind of continuously understand that this is something that students want and have advocated for such a long time. So also to add to that, this year, Gabe Lewis has actually presented at Burnaby City Council on the gondola not too long ago, just before I believe exam season. So this just kind of goes to show, since 2009, the progression of this campaign in regards to for how long it's been being pushed, the need for students to want more sustainable, reliable means of transportation on and off the mountain. So another key thing is sustainability, and this has been noted in regards to the gondola project for quite some time. So efficient, reliable, and safe public transit options for students have been a key component as well to further these advocacy efforts. So I kind of want to highlight a couple of those. Sustainable transportation, and what does this look like? So limit the amount of traffic and congestion on Burnaby Mountain, as well as this would also support the limited parking that we already have on campus, the ability to transport more folks on and off the mountain. This would actually eliminate 50 hours of diesel buses that are in operation currently. So the need for less fuel and things like that would definitely impact in relation to discussing what we need for, sorry, I'm getting kind of mixed up, but we would also reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 1,700 tons per year. And I think this is a really good topic to be an opportunity, not just within like SFU, but SFSS as student members advocating to be leaders in creating sustainable public transit options for students. Other couple key points is that the gondola would actually double the transit capacity over the existing 145 bus route. And I know that you are an SFU student if you have had to wait in line at Production Way SkyTrain station. Just the congestion and sometimes having to wait and the stress of, around the exam period or beginning of the year when you have to, get your class like super early in the morning and having to make different connections from the SkyTrain, then to the bus, then up to campus. I think that's just another one of the reasons why the gondola would be such an asset to the mountain as well. If you think about capacity wise, 2,600 passengers per hour per direction, that's a lot of folks. And that would also be folks for university, because the population has been growing even in the past decade. And we also have more student housing on campus in resident. We have expanded that as well. So just think about not even for this year, but in the next 10 years, what that capacity will be like on SFU campuses. So just to think about for the longevity of this project, it seems that this would be a more appropriate measure to address some of those concerns around overcrowding, population growth, and also just eliminating some of the things that I mentioned earlier. So to kind of pivot a little bit, student life is a really big topic around how this would make a considerable change. In our academic learning experience, I think, we provide a lot of assets, like as students, in the services that we get out of SFU. And I think students who rely on public transit deserve reliable services. I know that even for myself, there was a point where I didn't have a vehicle, so I had to rely on public transit. And there was a time where the bus that I actually was on did get stuck, and I had to walk pretty far up the mountain. And like, I'm from Alberta, and I can tell you that the amount of snow, maybe this year, I don't know, but the amount of snow that we got is not compared to what we get in Alberta. And so just to think about, even the changes in weather conditions, how quickly they change from Burnaby Mountain to Metro Vancouver, where I'm currently situated at. The difference in weather patterns and things like that, we have noticed that there have been substantial increases of like weather changes, even what we've seen this year. It's good that the snowfall that happened over the holidays, and we weren't in classes during that time, because I do not believe that we would be able to move on and off the mountain so quickly, as well as to think about, students who do live on campus. And there are limits, like even though there are resources on campus and university, and that area is growing, the ability for students to leave the mountain when they need to access different services or even appointments and things like that would make it easier for them as well. So in our 2019 advocacy report, 94.4% of students noted that reliable transit is important and essential. And I think that's really key to highlight, that, we really rely on public transit, and even the cost of living has gone up. Not everybody can afford a vehicle, and also expenses related to when you are an undergraduate student. There are so many things in regard to housing, tuition, and all these things. So to think about that, when we need reliable, affordable, accessible transit, this is just one of those things that highlight why we need to consider projects like this moving forward. So the Burnaby Mountain Gondola and student life. Like I said, 73% of students at SFU rely on public transit. And again, this is from the advocacy report that was in 2019. And more reliable source of transportation throughout the year. So we already kind of touched on that weather, and, we know that climate change is a thing as well, and the weather patterns that we're seeing won't stop. So the more snow that is expected, especially during exam season or just out of the blue, I think that we need to start thinking about how can we eliminate, how can we eliminate some of these changes in regards to transportation and all these measures. And then I think also to discuss, I'm going to, hold on, let me see. I guess I'll just talk. I was really stoked on my slides, but that's all good. Okay, so another thing that I wanted to mention is that in regards to, where is it? The Burnaby Mountain Gondola gives an alternative route for hazardous weather events. Like we've discussed previously, we do have the tank farm that is located on the mountain, and it is in between two of the main exit routes that kind of leads up to SFU Burnaby. And through that, when we see the gondola, that gives us an alternative way to travel in a safe manner. So there was another component to this, which is building community. And this will not only positively impact SFU Burnaby, but Burnaby as a whole. So a couple components to that is creating an effective and accessible transportation option for Burnaby and Metro Vancouver residents. and also bridging the gap from Burnaby Mountain for SFU and university residents as well. And also, I believe this would create a sense of community on Burnaby Mountain. So a couple of those key things is that due to the lack of, I guess, the capacity to get up to SFU Burnaby accessible in an accessible way as of right now, because we only rely on the bus system, I think this is an opportunity to also bridge those gaps from the city of Burnaby to Burnaby Mountain, and also the residents of university and SFU students. So I think this would be a really great project in order to contribute not only to the SFU campus, but to Burnaby City as a whole. And I think that we should look at this project in the ability to, one, grow capacity, support sustainable options, and also ensure that both sides from Burnaby Mountain and the city of Burnaby are able to move up and down the mountain in a way that is suitable and meets the needs of our growing community. So I just wanted to leave you with the Burnaby Mountain Gondola project has the opportunity to impact the quality of life of students at SFU, university, and the Burnaby community. And I wanted to give a special thanks to student leaders, previous student leaders, and the community who have advocated for the Burnaby Mountain Gondola project before I've been here. So I wanted to give a shout out to the current SFSS President Gabriel Leosis, who has spent many hours, even last year, as university and academic affairs advocating for this project. The SFSS President 2020-2021, Asif Mohammed, former student senator Colin Fowler, who has, preached the gondola for many years. SFSS President 2019-20, Giovanni Dapa Hosang, SFSS 2019 VP University Relations, Shaina Kaur. And I also wanted to give a shout out to the staff who made this town hall possible and put in endless hours of work this week, and it was very successful. Regardless of whatever tech issues and stuff we're having, I'm really happy to say that we're able to move this forward. So thank you to the SFSS staff. So our board organizer, Ella Joko, policy research and community affairs coordinator, BD, campaigns and mobilization coordinator, Muriel, communications coordinator, Ilham, and also the comms team who got all of our socials and figured out all the background stuff for us. Thank you for that. And our accessibility coordinator, Brianna Price, who was able to help us with the ASL interpreters. And also thank you to the ASL interpreters for coming and being able to be here today with us. So thank you to the SFU community, staff, and students. That is my presentation. And even with all those technical glitches, I'm glad we made it through, because that was a lot of slides. So I hope you have a good day, and I am grateful to be here.
Thank you so much, Matt. I think as transitioning into maybe a little bit more of a informal conversation where we do provide you with the slides after the fact will be how we go moving forward. Sounds good? Amazing. All right, so we will move on next to our next speaker today. We will hear next from Director of External Affairs for the Graduate Student Society, Ruben Munez. Ruben holds a Bachelor of Arts in Economics and is the MBA candidate experienced in negotiation, teaching, and relationship building. He has been serving at the Graduate Student Society since May 2021, when he was elected Director of External Relations. In his portfolio, he has prioritized affordability, housing, and has advocated for the interests of graduate students. Ruben grew up in Colombia, where he developed a sense of social justice and moved to Vancouver to attend Simon Fraser University. Go ahead, Ruben.
Thank you for the introduction. Thank you also for the invitation, and thank you all folks for attending the town hall. I did have a presentation, but then just a quick question, I should not share it anymore, right?
Yes, I will provide the slides after the fact.
Awesome, thank you for that. All right, so yeah, as Manuela mentioned, my name is Ruben. the current Director of External Relations. One of the things that is in my portfolio is the advocacy for the interests of grad students. And in this, some of these interests is also health and quality of living. And we cannot talk about a proper quality of living if we are spending most of our times during commutes. There are several studies that show how the disadvantages of living far from campus. And not only researchers, but also several stories. We always know someone who lives 2 hours away from campus. Now, I wanted to mention before jumping into the presentation, I want to talk a little bit about the GSS, the Graduate Student Society, and what we do. So the GSS is an organization that is independent and is student-led. I think it's important to mention this because the facts that I'm sharing today with you represent the current conditions of the students, of grad students, and the issues that several of us have when we commute, specifically when we travel to the mountain. And also because we advocate for the interest of us grad students across all campuses, Vancouver, Surrey, and Burnaby. But one of our longest concerns is the Burnaby Mountain transportation. Now, in terms of numbers, in terms of enrollment, we are around 4,500 students, which is almost 16% of the total student population. But we and out of this number, around 3,000 are domestic students, and 1,400 are international students. Now, this is just our origins, quote unquote. Now, what I mean is that it comes down to even a larger number of students that are not local. Local as in familiar with the area, familiar with how to move from point A to point B, and local as in that have been able to develop a sustainable way of life, like somehow that they have been able to work in the region to afford commute. So most of us that's not the case for the vast majority of us. And in addition, in terms of the program, 51 of the programs offered by the university, 66%, they are in Burnaby Mountain. So basically 66% of our population go to the mountain. Now, who we are. Our average age is 35 years old. I mentioned this because, and I put myself as an example here, after 30, our conditions, situations, they change. I do have back pain, for example, and I did not have that when I was in my 20s. I speak for myself and for many when I said I cannot study overnight, and some other issues. So because of this, we are no longer suitable for extreme conditions. Hence, we're not like suitable for long commutes. Now, in addition of that, like our profile, most of us are workers, which we have had a full-time job, and we have had a full-time job with all the responsibilities. 20% of us are parents. We're also community members, so we engage in community building activities with neighbors, different social circles. And also, more than a quarter of us, more than 25% of us are TAs, and a vast majority, even a larger proportion, are RAs. So basically, what I mean here is that we're no longer students, but we're also workers, and we have like a double commitment. So we have responsibilities both at school and work and at home. So we have a bunch of constraints and a bunch of responsibilities. And on top of everything, if we have longer commutes affect us most because we have to sacrifice our own time in different scenarios, at home, at work, and at school, to make it all possible. I also wanted to mention that 3 things. Well, we're not. I want to say we're not drivers, and by that I mean that we because we pay tuition, we pay rent and different expenses, we cannot afford cars. Like some of us, of course, have cars, but the vast majority don't because it's just not affordable. Again, because of our physical condition, we're not cyclists. We're not in shape, say, and I speak for myself again, cycle up the mountain. Also, weather does not allow that too. And lastly, we are not risk takers. And by that I mean that we have taken enough risks in our lives, and now we're looking for more secure options. So therefore, when we talk about commute issues, these issues affect us at a deeper scale. So bottom line, for us, if we grad students want to avoid commute, we only have two alternatives. We either apply for student housing or we live in university. However, student housing can only host up to 200 students, including the new Law 21. That is less than 4% of the total of the population. And the second alternative, university, well, that's just not affordable because that's market prices. So paying rent, one bedroom rent, $1,800. So basically, we do not have options. And that's the problem that I want to bring here, that because of these issues, at least 3,500 of us have to commute and have long commutes. I also wanted to mention that now specifically, we have 6 major issues. The first one, the schedules, as I mentioned before, because of the different responsibilities that we have. Well, our schedule is a big issue because we don't have consistent meetings with our professors, supervisors. So we struggle. We don't have a regular schedule to commute to the mountain. That means that on regular class schedules affects us more because we have difficulties finding appropriate working and study times. So we don't go to the mountain at the same time every day. We go in the morning, we go in the afternoon, and we leave late at night. And if you have left the mountain after 8, well, sometimes you have to wait 15, 20 minutes to get into the bus. So that's a big issue, schedule. Second issue is, again, longer commutes, and this means for us less time to socialize, less time to study in groups, fewer extracurricular activities, and basically less frequent student-faculty interactions. In terms of the commute itself, that's another big issue, which is common to all students: the waiting time. In the morning, if we have an early class, when the waiting time could be up to more than 12 minutes. And if the bus is available, if not, then we're gonna have to wait for the third, fourth bus. And we all have heard the stories before pandemic. When we do off hours, again, we don't have a reliable transportation, because if the bus gets canceled, we're gonna be late for a meeting, we're gonna be late for the class. And well, because of the responsibilities we have, we just cannot let that happen. And another issue that is common for all of us is the weather, winter class cancellations and exams rescheduling. We have all been through that, and well, that's a problem that affects everyone. Lastly, I put it under a different category, other issues, and I added practicums and internships because some of us have, for example, go to the mountain for classes, but then you have to go all the way to Surrey for your practicum hours. That's a very long commute. And if you don't have, if you have to wait at production station even longer to get up the mountain or back to get off the mountain, you're gonna be late for your practicum, and that's not gonna look good in your profile. So there are the different factors that play in this, and they affect also our mental health. So definitely having a more reliable, steady, and safe and visible mode of transportation would definitely help us into, again, increasing our mental health and allowing us to enjoy the more activities at the university, and allowing us to properly develop our activities at the university. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ruben. I really enjoyed your presentation. Thank you. And concluding our town hall today, we will hear from Vice President of External Relations at Simon Fraser University, Joanne Curry. Joanne is a SFU alumna and has worked at Simon Fraser University for over 25 years in various roles. In her current role as Vice President External Relations and member of the university's executive team, Joanne engages with stakeholders and seeks to raise the profile of the university. She's accountable for community engagement, government relations, and communications and marketing. She also has oversight over the management of the Vancouver and Surrey campuses, SFU art galleries, and SFU Woodward's cultural unit. Joanne has also been involved in advancing a number of Indigenous initiatives identified in the Aboriginal Reconciliation Calls to Action, including the First Peoples Gathering House. Joanne is the institutional lead for the proposed Burnaby Mountain Gondola project and has been actively involved for the past 8 years. Go ahead, Joanne. Thank you.
Great. Thanks to you. Thank you, Emanuela and Matt. And thank you so much for the strong acknowledgement of the First Nations on whose traditional and unceded territories we sit. I'm fortunate to be joining you from beautiful Burnaby Mountain, the home of Tsleil-Waututh, Musqueam, Coquitlam, and Squamish. So thank you for your time today. I know it's a busy time for students. And I just wanted to start out with a big thank you to SFSS, GSFs, Build the Gondola Now co-founder Colin Fowler, and many over the years. It has been 8 years, and frankly, in preparing for this, I went back to my emails to say, how many years has it been? And what's been really impressive is that through successive executive, and it's great to see Giovanni on the Zoom as well, the students have been so supportive. And it's too bad that I can't show my slides, but I have this wonderful slide showing some of the many interactions that students undertook with us to explore, ask tough questions, and support the Gondola project. Matt has highlighted some of them, visiting Victoria, working a lot with Burnaby Mayor and Council and others. And I'd like to just highlight one interaction that was so important to have students. And I was reminded by listening to Ruben and Matt's comments. It is so important for community to hear directly from students. And both Gabe and Osab and Matt from the GSS joined us for a couple of dialogues with residents of the most impacted complexes in the Forest Grove community. And what we discovered is the student voice is critical. And I think people don't know enough about the lives of students, the fact that so many have jobs, that they're commuting from all throughout the Lower Mainland, and just the burden of not having reliable transportation. So I certainly have seen firsthand how important the advocacy is of SFSS, GSS, and all students. So I wanted to begin by thanking you for that. So the Gondola project is been in discussion since 2009, so it's not a new idea. But it's over probably the last 5 years that there's been so much activity and study by TransLink, as well as focus on it by certainly SFU and all of you, as well as Burnaby Council. In 2009, a big milestone was Burnaby Council providing unanimous support to study the gondola further. And that was really important. And at the time, there were different routes identified. And so TransLink has spent the last 2 years addressing a whole bunch of technical requirements, for example, impacts on sound, environmental impacts, to name a few. And this has been really important, along with consulting with different members of the community, SFSS and others. So where we find ourselves now is we have a lot of data. And also a big development over the last 8 years is how much gondolas are used for urban transit throughout the world. I think when it was first proposed in 2009, there were some in operation, but now there are dozens of gondolas for transit operating safely and effectively throughout the world. And so that was just an added boost to the viability of using a gondola for Burnaby Mountain. The gondola has come out as certainly the preferred solution to the big transportation crunch that we face, particularly Production Way to the campus. And Matt mentioned it would allow for 2,600 people per hour. And right now buses are about 1,400. And it's not feasible to just add more buses. That's impossible because they have to leave at certain times and spaced out. And so the gondola is the transportation solution. And in fact, it can be future-proofed so that it can accommodate 4,000 to 5,000 people per hour. And that's important, being part of a growing university. And we also have the beautiful university community, which is now 7,000 residents. We have over 2,000 students that live on Burnaby Mountain. So the demand has only gone up from where we were 8 years ago, and even pre-COVID where we were 3 years ago. So I won't go into the benefits of the gondola. I think Matt and Ruben have outlined that so much. I think when you look at it from a government policy point of view, it's also very cost effective in terms of a solution. And unlike, it has one of the best benefit to cost ratios of any transportation project that has been worked on in recent years. So for every dollar it costs to build the gondola, there's a savings of $2.5. So it's very economical and a relatively small cost of a transportation project relative to major SkyTrain expansions, just to give an example. So where we're at today is that we are working closely with TransLink, Burnaby Council, with SFSS, GSS, the University Community Association, and others. Our hope is there is one particular route, the straight line one, that's been determined to be the most effective and least environmentally impactful. And it's now before Burnaby Council for further discussions and hopeful decisions of moving forward. It is in TransLink's 2050 plan, which is really great news. But with Burnaby Council support, it'll take that next big step to a discussion at the Mayor's Council, which will begin very shortly, where they identify in their next 10-year vision, what are the list of projects that they would like to have included. And this is really important. Also, the province and the federal government will look to the Mayor's Council vision in terms of their funding priorities as well. So I just want to conclude by saying we're at a very critical juncture, critical stage. There's been incredible good work done on the technical side, and we can get into some of that during the questions and answers. And you know, we believe that such a strong business case, that funding after a full business case will be positive, because we would like to see it open. You know, there's talk about if, you know, 2027, 2028. But like students, if we can make that open sooner, it's just going to start solving our major issues on Burnaby Mountain that much sooner. So thank you for the time to talk with you today, and I look forward to the question and answer period.
Thank you so much, Joanne. Your insight was phenomenal. And thank you all for contributing to the town hall and providing your insight on the effects of the Gondola project on SFU community members. We will conclude this morning with some questions and answers that have been previously sent through the Burnaby Gondola project at gmail.com email that we've set up previously in the week. And unfortunately, Ruben will not be able to join us for the question segment, but Matt and Joanne will be here going forward. Martin, I do see your hand up. We will go through the questions that we have prepared first, and then I will give you the floor to take a question. All right, so Joanne, starting a little bit first, can you, you went a little bit into detail about the cost-benefit ratio of the Gondola project already. Can you speak a little bit to how the proposed mountain gondola project will affect Burnaby residents at large?
So Burnaby at large, the city of Burnaby, it will be one of the top beneficiaries of the gondola because of the great use right now of the current bus system. So we have, about 25% of our students, staff, and faculty live in Burnaby along with their families. And other communities think it's important as well. So they'll benefit from much easier access to come up to Burnaby Mountain. And I'm hoping they come up as well. There's so many amazing amenities here, sporting games, kids' summer camps, a new art museum that's being built, the First Peoples Gathering House. So there's lots of reasons, in addition to wonderful lectures and academic opportunities. So lots of opportunities for Burnaby residents to come up and visit, even if they're not taking a particular class. So TransLink has found that in polling Burnaby residents that about 75% non-SFU, non-Forest Grove residents, so they wanted to look at the wider community, and 75%, going up to 76% after some consultation, are supportive of the gondola. And we find the support also really strong with University residents, 90%. And for them, it's less about being on the mountain, but getting off the mountain to take advantage of other opportunities in the communities. So we also see a much more enlivened Production Way area. And so there's lots of other economic spin-offs for Burnaby companies as well. But the big thing is really better connecting us, because we need to be better connected to the community, and our current bus situation is a real barrier for people to come up the hill.
Thank you. Matt, I know that the SFSS has a preferred route that we have endorsed. Can you explain why and how the SFSS came to this decision on the preferred route?
Yeah, so I can touch a bit on that. In my presentation on in January 2020, they had an open house for the gondola, and there was a lot of support. Actually, they received an overwhelming amount of support from student voices for the preferred route 1. It seemed like the most efficient and also another sustainable option because it had the least amount of environmental impact on Burnaby Mountain itself. I believe around 200 trees or something would be impacted due to the other various routes. And just from what I've seen in reports and whatnot, that's from what I know.
Thank you. I then have a little bit of a follow-up question. This was, we received a comment from a community member who submitted, why is the SFSS pushing this project ahead when Burnaby residents directly impacted by this project have not been sufficiently consulted? How does SFSS and SFU plan to address the harm done by residents' neighborhoods and property values? What is your direct response?
Okay, yeah, so I guess thinking about that, even just from the couple of years that I have been on the SFSS, there have been numerous community dialogues. I've even attended some in regards, I believe, to some consultations. Even as student leaders, we have done our best to share our thoughts throughout the years as well. We have provided many opportunities to have conversations in a good way, even such as today, opening up a town hall, trying to keep those communications going and make it as accessible as possible. In regards to the plan to address harm, I do not believe that is the responsibility of the SFSS, but is the role of TransLink to play in that. We provide support and advocacy for the betterment of supporting our undergraduate students at SFU, and this is beyond our jurisdiction, as this is a TransLink project and this will be up to them.
Thank you for that follow-up, Matthew. I do have a question for Joanne. In your talks with TransLink representatives, how has consultation with Indigenous nations, including the Musqueam, Squamish, Coquitlam, and Tsleil-Waututh nations, in which Burnaby SFU is situated, been prioritized, or even if it has been?
Well, it certainly was important to SFU and to TransLink, City of Burnaby, and all partners that there be consultation with local First Nations. And I was really pleased that very early on in this stage that all 4 First Nations have had a chance for input and will continue to have chance for further input into the future. For the 4 First Nations consulted where they had a route preference, further to Matt's comment, they did choose the direct line because I think the biggest concern are the environmental impacts. And so it's important to them. And I know TransLink put a lot of effort into fine tuning to avoid any environmental impacts possible by not going over streams and not impacting fish or wildlife. But also the removal of trees was a big concern. And so it's good that out of the Burnaby Mountain conservation area, there would be 40 trees of a total of 220, but the towers are going to be placed in appropriate spaces. So the First Nations, the 4 First Nations are actively engaged and appear very supportive. They also found that the reduction of GHG emissions is really important, and the fact that from day one, this will occur with the gondola. And they also pointed out to wanting to minimize impacts on Indigenous heritage. And so there's some studies underway to understand the significance and use of Burnaby Mountain over time. And that's a great conversation that we were already in at SFU with local First Nations that will continue. So just might have been a long answer, but extensive and thoughtful and respectful engagement with First Nations has been there from the start.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. To follow up with that question, Matthew, specifically regarding the needs for students on campus, we talk a lot about the accessibility of the project and about how folks with, mobility aids or different accessibility needs need to be prioritized in having this conversation. So have the needs of students with disabilities been considered by the SFSS regarding the gondola project?
Yeah, to answer that question, I think in regards to, as a SFSS, we're always working to support folks and increasing accessibility. And that's been, on a number of projects that we've done throughout the years. And I don't think, in regards to endorsements, I don't think we would have endorsed the project in general if it didn't increase accessibility or sustainability or any of the things that we've highlighted as well. Especially, I feel as though if it didn't meet the needs of students, I don't think there would be as much student support as we see now. So the gondola would improve the travel experience for students who do have disabilities, as there is a dedicated cap for the number of people per cabin for the trip, so it'd be more comfortable than riding the bus, for example, which can be overcrowded. And as we've seen the 145, it is pretty overcrowded, especially at high traffic times. And like the SkyTrain, there is a space that people traveling with mobility devices can use. The gondola cabins slower than walking speed, and so especially in unloading and loading areas. TransLink would work with the accessibility community to better understand the needs of this community and how to incorporate this into the design of the cabins and the system. And this is an opportunity to the SFSS, SFU, and TransLink collaboration. And moving forward with that, the SFSS does have an accessibility committee that is highly engaged, as well as other equity-seeking groups that I feel that if the project wasn't meeting those accessibility needs, there would be some advocacy on that. And I feel as though providing that consultation, and even if the project goes through and if that does happen, then we might be able to see how that might impact, and also have room for feedback for students with disabilities and hearing first from them and consulting with them as a community, and as well as with the larger Burnaby community. I think that's key because as someone who doesn't have any accessibility needs, I don't think it would be right for me to speak on behalf of that. And I would feel as though it would be right for the community to state what they need, as well as supports, especially when we're talking about big projects like this, because we have, such a big campus and we have such a diverse amount of students that we need to have we just need to be really supportive and take that community care into action when we're doing projects like this. And yeah, that's kind of what I have to say to that question.
Thank you, Matt. So we did also receive another follow-up comment. Joanne, this one is directed towards you. We had a community member who submitted, "I do not think that the gondola should be built. In all three possible routes, a significant amount of trees would have been cut and ecosystems would be disturbed. The houses that the gondola would be going over would also have their privacy interrupted. I do not think that was necessary. I know you spoke a little bit to it prior, but can you speak to specifically the environmental and social impact of the project?
Well, maybe I'll start with the tree impact, which I did mention the fact that 200, in the modeling now on the straight line route, there'd be about 220 trees removed, 40 in the Burnaby Mountain Conservation Area. But they would follow the Burnaby bylaw on tree removal and replacement. So these trees would be replaced as well. There was some misperception that, in the swath of the gondola route that all trees would be cut down, and that is not the case, that it travels above the tree line. So this is, the minimized impact and a commitment by TransLink also to make sure if there's any way they can do better on that, they will. On the sort of, I mentioned also about the fish and wildlife, and that's something that was also really important and probably was the reason one of the dogleg routes were eliminated, because it would actually have greater environmental impact, not less. And so the straight line route was also indicated as the preference there. I guess on the sort of intrusion, one thing that I've certainly learned is how high the gondola actually will ride, where the cables are. And it's about 60 to 70 meters above homes. And so I believe the majority of people will not see the gondola because of the tree cover. And also that there's ways on cabin design as well to ensure that people don't, there's not a glass floor, for example, on the cabins. So I know that, it is a concern of residents, not only at Forest Grove, but here at University, and TransLink is committed to work with community and minimize visual impacts as much as possible. And, the other impacts are things like sound. I know there were some worries, but the current modeling suggests that it operates very quietly, under 1 decibel change. And so that's less than what a human ear can hear. So I think it's actually going to be an improvement compared to diesel articulated buses going up the road. So there's some added benefits there as well. So I did reference the towers before and minimizing sort of any environmental impacts. Also during construction, it's a relatively straightforward build for a gondola. It actually is built over 12 to 18 months, but the placement of towers is actually even, very short. And so again, they've been placed to have the minimal impacts possible in the placement of the towers.
Thank you, Joanne. Finally, our last submitted question is directed to Matthew. Can you speak to what this project overwhelmingly will mean to students in the future?
Yeah, thank you, Ella. I think to speak to this, even just we've seen like the growing support since, the SFSS and also other students have taken on this advocacy, and also to a lot of the efforts that have been made, even just realizing that 700 students and SFU community members contributed to an open house, I think says a lot in capacity, and even students who are coming to these town halls and wanting to engage in these conversations speaks a lot to how much it interests students. I've heard, I think it will, in a way, not only impact SFU students, but also Burnaby City, the growing university population and SFU as a community. It gives that opportunity for, I think, something bigger to happen. I think it's really essential that we're moving in a way where we are really appreciating what sustainability means and how we want to do that by eliminating buses, by eliminating hazardous situations, like, when we talk about, for example, what type of safety do we want to see for our community if we have a tank farm here, like things like that. And those are practical things that we also need to think about. I think there's so many benefits for it, for students in the long term. We've seen, the need for more reliable and accessible transit options on the mountain, even for myself. I'm a recent alumni, and for the numerous times that I've had to take the bus or like just things like that, I have faced like few like barriers and things like that, not as much as like students like who do have disabilities or accessibility. They need more accessible options of transportation. But just to mention like some of those things, like it is overcrowded, it is uncomfortable. And we also need to think about, you know, in regards to COVID, overcrowded, like this is what we're in, like a new normal. And like, do you really want to be on a bus with like overcrowding and things like that, especially now and moving forward? We need to think about these things because the world is changing at a rapid rate, and there's a lot of things and a lot of dimensions that we need to consider as of right now. And I think for students, it would be just such a great benefit to ensure that we're able to make it to school at the end of the day, like safe. So yeah, that's kind of what I have to say on that. So thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. And we will take one question from Martin. I see your hand up. You should be able to unmute yourself when you're ready.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Martin Kendall. I'm a 20-year resident of Burnaby. I ran in the 2020 Burnaby by-election and have plans to run again in this upcoming election in October. I have heard the viewpoints of people up at SFU and people also down at Forest Grove. My question sort of has been answered in the past with a few of the submitted questions. However, I guess my big idea is I'd like to see this gondola move forward. I think in a timely manner. I think it's overdue, honestly. I had a roommate many years ago who was an SFU student, and several times I was jostled out of bed to get him up the mountain because he woke up late and couldn't get up to his class using transit. So I got the privilege of doing that. So nonetheless, I think the one thing is that with university becoming a larger part of the mountain is that the use of the transportation of consumable goods is going to become a bigger issue in the future. And I'd like to see the gondola be almost sort of like a stopgap kind of solution until the North Shore proposed SkyTrain comes in, and then that be used to help get consumable goods up the mountain. I think that you have a lot of diesel trucks going up the mountain, and I think that, you know, getting rid of the buses is a good first step, but getting rid of the trucks would be even better. So if there was a way to integrate the movement of consumable goods using the SkyTrain and people, that would be a very good step forward, especially as a university and the SFU faculty and student population grows. I guess the other thing I have to say is that when it comes to Forest Grove is that it is sort of one of the last bastions of, quote, affordable housing in Burnaby, and as a result, a lot of co-op housing in the area. I do understand their concerns with the loss of privacy, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that honestly, I think in the study I saw there was 2 houses directly impacted with the gondola going over it. I'm just wondering if SFU is willing to engage with TransLink to possibly buy them out to remove that barrier and move forward with this project.
I think that question is directed to Joanne.
Great, but Matt might want to chime in. Martin, I must say, you know, thank you for putting yourself forward again to Burnaby Council in the elections in the fall. And one thing with the student involvement is students do vote, and it's also been good, I think, and Matt can elaborate if he wishes to, but it's been interesting to have them involved with councillors, because the gondola isn't the only topic. There's so many other topics at the municipal level where a lot of important things really hit the ground. The answer to your last question is yes, SFU is engaged with TransLink, and TransLink has a compensation policies around impacted units, whether residential or businesses, with the right of way. But SFU is very open to discussions about how we could possibly help or contribute. And I'd have to say too, there's some really positive developments. Some of the last build outs of University include rental housing, which is great. So we're seeing some more housing options on Burnaby and Mountain, in addition to the expansion of student housing. So I think that was the main question that you wanted answered. But yeah, we're, you know, fair compensation is a principle of Burnaby Council in terms of evaluation of this project, and they know it's obviously really important to Forest Grove in particular. I don't know, Matt, if you want to add anything or.
Yeah, I just kind of want to say thank you, Martin, for your support in kind of raising that concern. Also, thank you for coming today. It's nice to hear from you. I think the only thing that I would mention is that I guess, regarding like the privacy aspect, there is some, I believe privacy glass would be used to blur out views of the housing below. And I believe there's also actually a facility in Burnaby like that makes that glass. So just trying to consider that there are options in maintaining privacy for, you know, concerned residents. And I believe that, you know, moving forward, that's probably what I have to say for now. Thank you, though.
Thank you so much, both of you. And thank you for contributing the question. So great. So that concludes our programming for today. We will head into the 4 winners of the Gondola project. So the 4 winners of the Gondola project draw that was submitted to our jot forms throughout this entire town hall will be Aliv Maleki, Liz Giardin, Miranda Timoshik, and I apologize if I am butchering the names, and Emily Shaughnessy. So you will receive an email following up about your submission, and you will receive an answer to your question that you sent in on jot form as well. So thank you so much for contributing. All right, so for folks that maybe want to learn a little bit more about SFU, GSS and SFSS's stances on the Gondola project, feel free to reach out to our social media. You can find us on Facebook with the Simon Fraser Student Society. This is particularly us. Twitter, SFSS1, and Instagram, SFSS_SFU. We appreciate your time, and we will take any additional questions you have about the proposed Burnaby Mountain Gondola project over email at burnabygondolaproject@gmail.com. We would like to extend a massive thank you for everyone for joining us and the 3 wonderful folks that presented here today, and sitting through all of our technical issues as well. The Gondola is a project with so many different viewpoints, and as the person who so graciously annotated illustrated that one of the main reasons for the need for this gondola is about climate change. It will serve as a way to work towards climate justice and is something that the SFU community will benefit from. For those who have a little bit more time later today, the Simon Fraser Student Society will be conducting a COVID-19 press conference at 1:30 p.m. PST. You can watch a live stream of our press conference on YouTube under the account Simon Fraser Student Society. So again, thank you everyone for joining us today. We will conclude the call now, but join us at the press conference. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Have a good day.
Have a good day. Thanks for a good laugh.